Good evening. Our top story this week, National Child Liquidation, Adoption Month, goes off with thousands of kids all across the USA, including 110 in Los Angeles, California, and another 13 in Vandenberg County, Indiana, with thousands more kids up for grabs across the state, all being pawned off on adoptive parents to make room for the next batch of foster kids. In Minnesota, desperate to adopt infertile couples are marketing themselves on Craigslist to potential moms who want to give up their newborns. And in Arizona, lawmakers voted unanimously last session to create a committee to oversee child protective services, but never actually created the panel. In Colorado this week, where CPS agents are inexperienced and overwhelmed, and an antiquated funding process plagues the state's child welfare system, it is revealed that in half of the 72 cases where a child died from abuse or neglect since 2007, CPS agents broke at least one rule while investigating the situation. In Florida, an investigative report reveals that some religious reform schools are havens for child abuse with lax oversight from the child protective industry. In Maine, a report reveals that some staff members within the Department of Health and Human Services knew about a computer glitch before the system was even implemented that ended up costing the state $10.6 million in Medicaid overpayments, but did nothing to fix it. Maine's Wabanaki Indian tribes are getting their Truth and Reconciliation Committee after years of kids being taken from their Native American families by CPS agents just to be indoctrinated into white culture. And in Massachusetts, the child protective industry is so desperate for foster parents that they'll take just about anybody. In Michigan, a number of parents are getting together in a federal class action lawsuit over the unfair violation of parental rights in regards to the state's child abuse register. In Ohio, CPS agents are going to be investigated to see why they failed a kid who died from malnutrition. In Texas, a new CPS leader is named after the old one quit amid a criminal investigation into the death of a malnourished toddler who was failed by CPS agents. And in Rhode Island, foster kids are 30% more likely to be doped up on psychotropic medications than are kids in the general population. In Tennessee, lawmakers want to get rid of the head of the child protective industry, citing poor performance and complaints. And the newly updated Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is going to label kids who they say have too many hissy fits with what will now be referred to as disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. In Morocco, the government is trying to restrict the county's adoption system at a time when they have an overabundance of orphans and abandoned kids. In South Africa, the trial of a man who raped his foster son is postponed until December. In New Zealand, a foster father is on trial for molesting a 15-year-old girl who was in his care. And in Canada, an inquiry into the death of a little girl named Phoenix Sinclair resumes after a 2-month delay after lawyers were wrangling over witness testimony. And of course, the excuse that they are using is that they were too overwhelmed with heavy caseloads to do anything right. In Australia, excessive force by staff is causing a high number of injuries at youth detention centres. The Royal Commission on Child Abuse will expose hundreds more victims who have been abused while in the Australian foster care system, as abuse victims come forward seeking compensation for their suffering. And an Australian CPS agent is refused bail after sexually abusing a 9-year-old girl. In England, the country is going all nutty with moral panic over child abuse as the names of the Tory pedophiles are being tossed about like tasty tidbits on Twitter. A damning report called Lost in Care details the abuse of youngsters in a North Wales children's home. The Doncaster Children's Services is slammed after failing to protect 2 tortured and humiliated sex abuse victims, and the recommended solution, of course, is to take more kids. The judgment of Prince Charles has been called into question after it is found that not only was he good friends with the pedophile BBC star Jimmy Savile, but it has now been found that he provided a free house to an ex-Church of England bishop who was arrested on sex abuse allegations. And Lord McAlpine says he's going to sue everybody who falsely accused him of sexual abuse on Twitter. In entertainment news this week, the voice of Sesame Street's Elmo takes a leave of absence to confront sexual abuse allegations, but his accuser recants the allegations and admits that he was actually of age when they had sex. The British broadcasting system finds itself engulfed in a major child sex abuse scandal as the BBC Director General resigns after only 54 days on the roll. Modern Family's Ariel Winter dumps her 18-year-old boyfriend, who the family believes caused the child abuse accusations. And even CPS agents couldn't find anything wrong in the mother's home. In California, a group home employee who said she was blackmailed into having sex with a 14-year-old boy was sentenced to 2 years in a state prison. In San Francisco, a foster mother who burned a 20-month-old by making her wear a bleach-soaked diaper is arraigned on child abuse charges. And a San Bernardino County family counselor is charged with pimping out a 15-year-old girl. In Nevada, a family court judge pleads not guilty in a $3 million investment fraud scheme. In New Jersey, a town supervisor and former Boy Scout leader is charged with having sex with a child under the age of 11. In Ohio, an 18-year-old stabs her foster mother to death while the woman's 13-year-old kid calls 911, but police can't figure out what motivated the kid to do such a thing. In Oregon, police are investigating an abuse case in a foster home for grown-ups. In Texas, CPS agents snatched the kids in retaliation from a woman who publicly recanted sexual assault allegations against 4 women that she had made when she was a kid. In Oklahoma, a judge is being investigated and is accused of gross neglect of duty for returning a girl to her mother twice before she became permanently disabled. An Oklahoma CPS agent who committed suicide after being blamed for failing to protect a young girl who was murdered has officially been cleared in that case. And finally tonight, in Washington, the sister of a murdered foster child is accusing CPS of failing her family by not getting her or any of her siblings adopted, separating them all in the foster care system, and bouncing them through 7 different homes apiece. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.